In this video, I look at appeal decisions concerned with terrace properties and the question of which side of the terrace is the principal elevation. Classes A and E of the permitted development order have limitations related to the original building, and so identifying the form of the original building is an important step. For applications under Class B, this step is not required. In the first case, the appellant occupies a mid-terrace property where the terrace axis is north-south. The appellant applied for a lawful development certificate, an LDC, to erect an outbuilding in the garden on the west elevation. The council refused this Class E application on the basis that the structure would be situated on land forward of a wall forming the principal elevation of the original dwelling house. The council considered the west-facing elevation to be the principal elevation. Upon appeal, the inspector saw that there was a central green space from which there was access to each dwelling. The existence of canopies above the entrance doors, letterboxes, and house numbers suggested that these elevations were originally designed as the principal elevations. The eastern elevation of the house is now utilised as the main entrance by the appellants due to the ease of access when using the car. The garden to the west is considered by the householder to be the rear garden of the house because that is how it functions at present. However, for the purposes of PDO, the inspector included that the western elevation of the property was the principal elevation of the original dwelling. As the outbuilding would be situated on land forward of a wall forming the principal elevation, the appeal was dismissed. This terrace runs east-west, and the appellant applied for an LDC to build a dormer window on the south-facing roof slope. Development under PD rules is allowed as long as the dormer would not extend beyond the plane of existing roof slope, which forms the principal elevation of the dwelling house and fronts a highway. The council refused this Class B application on the basis that they considered the southern elevation to be the principal elevation of the house, and that the roof slope fronted the highway. Upon appeal, the inspector considered whether the north or south-facing elevation was the principal elevation. Architecturally, the two elevations were fairly similar, each containing doorways and windows of a simple design. The south elevation provided the main pedestrian and vehicle access, but had a functional feel, featuring two inspection chambers in the walkway to the setback doorway. By contrast, the north elevation provided the address, postcode and letterbox for the property. The doorway was positioned in line with the northern facade, giving it greater visual prominence. The plot to the north was the main garden area, beyond which was green landscaping and footpaths. On balance, the inspector arrived at the conclusion that the principal elevation was the north elevation, and the appeal was allowed. This terrace runs east-west. The appellant applied for an LDC to build a dormer window on the north-facing roof slope, which overlooks the parked cars. Development under PD rules is allowed as long as the dormer would not extend beyond the plane of an existing roof slope, which forms the principal elevation of the dwelling house and fronts a highway. The council refused this Class B application on the basis that they considered the northern elevation to be the principal elevation of the house, and that the roof slope fronted the highway. With regard to the north elevation, the appeal inspector observed small yards with outbuildings, some with rear outriggers. Some of the yard gates had numbers and letterboxes. While this highway set the postcode, the elevation appeared functional as opposed to presenting an attractive and uniform frontage. The south elevation overlooked long gardens, and there was a footway between the houses and gardens. The understanding is that this would have been the front of the house originally. There's a balanced array of doors and windows, and this elevation had the features normally associated with the front of the house. In conclusion, the inspector said the principal elevation was the south elevation facing the gardens, and the appeal was allowed. This terrace runs east-west, and the appellant applied for an LDC to erect a conservatory in the garden on the south elevation. The council refused the Claim E application on the basis that the structure would be situated on land forward of a wall forming the principal elevation of the original dwelling house. The council considered the principal elevation to be the south-facing elevation. Upon appeal, the inspector noted that the north elevation fronts a highway that gives the address and postcode to the property. Access is available to a yard enclosed by a high fence. There's an entrance door, a letterbox, and several small windows on this elevation. Formal visitors, such as those making deliveries, were likely to consider the north elevation to be the front elevation. The south elevation fronts a main highway serving the house. There's a door plus 3 main windows on this elevation. The inspector considered the south elevation had the main architectural features and that it was the principal elevation. The conservatory extended beyond the wall which fronted a highway and formed the principal elevation, making it ineligible for PD. The appeal was dismissed. And if you're thinking of pressing the like or subscribe buttons, thank you in advance. This video was the last of this particular series. 16 videos, all focused on the principal elevation. Hopefully you enjoyed watching them and you found them useful. Next week I might do a one-off video before I kick off another series of videos. At the moment I don't know, I just haven't decided. Thanks for watching this series. I hope to see you next week.